And the Death by Bunjie vlog for 2024-2025 Crossbow Seasons continues. I am driving around doing my thing here, trying to get away from the Dunkin' Donuts, get out of here, moving around. They have a roundabout in the middle of a parking lot. Who does that? We don't do roundabouts where I'm from. Do they do roundabouts where you're from? I really think that that is an overrated traffic design thing. It's just... we have corners where I'm from, and lights, whatever. Anyway, I'm excited about this afternoon, and the reason for that is it is windy for starters, and I've had good success here on the first windy day of the season. That was a year where I just saw deer after deer after deer after deer coming in. That windy stuff, everybody's like, well, it stirs your scent up and everything, but I got scent lock, right? Where's the logo? There's the logo. I got scent lock, so don't worry about it, okay? I got it covered. I got it covered. I'm just throwing that stuff in there to push the buttons of the guys that don't believe in scent lock, because right now they're typing,
scent lock, it's no good, you have to play the wind. I just play the wind.
That's my new thing. Hopefully these things are entertaining. I don't know. Let me know if you think these vlogs are entertaining. If they're not entertaining, let me know, and I'll just keep doing them. Whatever. All in fun. All in fun. The windy day, plus the temperature's dropping, and that is a recipe for deer coming out of the woodwork, right? That plus this new feeder. Now, the sort of theme of the vlogs of this crossbow season is what? What's the title at the beginning of these episodes? Times change. Things change over time, and I've talked about that all through Crossbow Appreciation Month. We talked about how crossbows have evolved and all this stuff has changed, and, you know, people... what I'm looking for in a crossbow, what I'm looking for in my crossbow hunting changes over time. I get bored, right? Shooting the same deer under the same tree stand with the same crossbow time and time again. You got to mix it up. Last year, shot a really nice buck in the Kingdom of Bunjie in a place where I had sat in a tree stand. I sat in dozens of times, but I was using a new crossbow, and it performed flawlessly, the SWAT X1. Where is the SWAT X1? But that's what I'm talking about. You got to mix things up, right? You got to sort of, you know, throw a little wrench in the works every once in a while, stir things up a little bit, and like try the new crossbow, like the Raven, see if that 450 feet per second is good enough, right? Is going to work for you or not, that kind of thing. So I've been looking at that kind of stuff, and it's just times change, and you got to sort of look at new equipment, new gear. I like doing that. Now, people, the response is,
well, Rich, you don't really need to change things because the deer don't change, right? The deer don't change. The deer are the same. How can we need new equipment if you're already killing deer with the equipment you have? Why do you need new equipment, right? Because the deer haven't changed.
Well, I got news for you. Deer do change. They definitely change. When I first came down here to Maryland, we were hunting over corn piles. This is the first year where times change. We're hunting over a feeder. Now that feeder is 26 yards, 27 yards away from the tree stand. 30-yard shot with the SWAT X1 is like a fantastic shot. It's like the made-for custom shot. It's what you ask for with that crossbow, or with any modern crossbow, right? With Bunjie, a 20-yard shot with the heavier arrows I'm using, especially to get that extra momentum, that's pushing it, right? 20 yards it's a long ways. This doe I shot this morning, 24 yards, that was a stretch, you know, with that crossbow. Deer do change, and the way that we hunt them changes because of advancements in technology. You can kill a deer with a spear, you can kill a deer with a rifle, you can kill a deer any number of ways. But for us as crossbow hunters, and me in particular as a crossbow hunter, I like to be as efficient as possible, as effective as possible. I am more effective at 30 yards with the SWAT X1 than I am at 20 yards with the original Bunjie. It's just a fact. I am a more effective killer with the SWAT X1. It's just the way it is. It's just a fact, right? And that's another thing, one of my pet peeves. 400
feet per second, you know, doesn't kill the deer any deader than 300 feet per second. 300 feet per second kills them just as dead.
That's not true. It is not true. I shoot a deer and it spines it because the arrow is too slow, and the deer dies in 5 minutes instead of 1 minute or 30 seconds. That is not the same death, right? And if you shoot a deer with a tiny fixed blade and you have trouble finding it because the blood trail is not as good, that is not as dead as and not as effective as killing that same deer with a 3-inch Swhacker or another expandable that you pushed through that deer that leaves a giant gaping wound and kills it quickly and leaves you a really easy to follow blood trail. Those are two different things. Those are two different things, and don't pretend that they're the same. They're not. That's my soapbox on this vlog, but I am really, really pumped to get out there and see what shows up tonight. I think this is my last night I'll be sitting at this stand, and I say that because I've got other ones in mind where I'm hoping to hunt, but we're going to find out who shows up here tonight and see if we get some action. I think we will. I think we will. Fingers crossed. Bunjie and I are keeping the buzzards happy. That's from my doe this morning. Oh, I made it into the stand. It is a little breezy. It's a lot windier than I thought it would be, but I think we're going to be okay. Same setup as before. I keep hearing branches break, but I'm thinking that's just stuff blowing off the trees. It's going to be a little bit confusing today. But I hung Bunjie up because I'm going to stand for an hour or two. And then as the deer start showing up, I will carefully sit back down. And that way I'll be able to sit without moving around, without rushing around. I'll be a little bit better able to sit still if I do that, because I want to sit for as long. It's about 3:30 now. I am all set up. End of legal shooting light is 8 p.m. For me, it really ends around 7:45, if you know what I'm saying. But nonetheless, between now and sunset, I've got 4 hours. So that's a long time to be sitting. So I'm going to stand for as much of that as I can. That feeder should go off again at 6:30. So that last hour is crucial that I sit still. The other nice thing about the wind is that I think I can get away with a little bit more movement because I'm standing here, and if I'm moving and looking around, that sort of thing, all the trees are doing the same thing with the wind, right? So when I have to move to sit back down and take the crossbow with me, I think I won't stand out as much. The deer may not pick up on it as easily. So I just have to be quiet, not move any more than I have to. But we should be good to go. I am done with an old slow crossbow, and I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear people telling me that that's okay, and it happens time and time again. I am tired of being in that situation. Every deer I've shot at 350 feet per second and above has been a complete pass-through. Deer runs off, dies out of sight, everybody's happy. This does not make me happy. This was supposed to be a deer that I shot, it runs off, leave it lay, shoot a buck later on. That's what this is supposed to be. And instead I got a dead deer laying there with 2 arrows in it. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. This is the last trip that I will use this crossbow for. It's that simple. For what it's worth, she did not suffer very long. I put that second arrow in her real quick. So, 2 deer dead under the feeder. Let's clean this up and get ready for the feeder to go off in a couple of hours. Broke my zombie. Perfect heart shot on the second one. Look at that trail. Dragged her all the way from the feeder. While she's laying down there, I've calmed down a little bit. Forgive my rant. Man, I have a really high expectation for what I do, because you work on this all year long, you practice all year long, and then something like that, the moment of the shot, it goes bad. Your mind has to, with a crossbow like this, accept that you're aiming somewhere where you don't want to hit. You're aiming below. You're aiming at the heart. You want the deer to duck into the shot or whatever. I never, ever liked playing those games. I've written about this in my books, and I don't like it. I like to aim where I want the arrow to go, and I expect this crossbow or whatever piece of gear you're using to get that arrow there before that point of aim moves. And that's probably in part because of all the time I spent in the backyard. It's probably in part due to my history and experience as a rifle hunter. I know that, right? And I know that you need, I know compound bow hunters who are watching this will tell you over and over, no, you just aim low. You know, you get it figured out and you understand your equipment and all that business. And I get it. I totally understand it. You don't need to tell me. I know. I understand what you're saying. I just don't like it. I don't like it one bit. And more often than not, it seems like, it's not more often than not, probably 30% of the time though, I'm having deer get spined, hitting the shoulder blade. This thing not cut out for anything past 20 yards. 20 yards is pushing it with that speed. It just is. What I need is, I need one of those crossbows that shoots like, you know, 360 to 400 feet per second. You know, I had my eye on the Killer Instinct SWAT X1. I should look into getting one of those. I also expect that some of you are like, man, Rich,
don't shoot a doe that has a fawn with it. The poor fawn had spots and everything. Now it lost its mommy.
When it comes to taking does, all you're doing is leaving more food for the rest of them. That's all I did here. I just left more food for that fawn. And that doe right there was not going to eat as much as that fawn is going to need, right? That fawn is going to need more food than that doe probably would, because the fawn has to put on weight in anticipation of winter. So that fawn now has one less deer around taking food out of its mouth. Also, that fawn was in here. This time of year when the hunting seasons roll around, that fawn is more than able to live on its own. It will be just fine. Just as fine as it would have been with its mother around. It is going to have, it can eat corn. It was sitting there eating corn. It's totally okay on its own. Doesn't need to nurse off the mother or anything at this point. And what happens now, that fawn groups up with another doe somewhere, hangs out with other deer. It'll be just fine. Don't take my word for it. I'm not just saying this to make you feel better or to make myself feel better, right? Watch videos with Dr. Grant Woods. When it comes to filling doe tags, it's very important to fill doe tags. Last night, there were 20 deer in front of me at this feeder, right? Only 2 of them were bucks. That's like way too many does, right? And you look through here. When you look through here, right? When I look through these woods, 6 feet up, you can see straight through. Nothing's growing on the bottom. They have eaten everything within 6 feet of the ground. And the reason for that is there's just no food in the wintertime. So they go through and they peel back these forests. It's not good for deer. It's not good for the forests. It's not good for any wildlife to have an overpopulation like that. Like Dr. Grant Woods would tell you, right? People smarter than me, deer people smarter than me will tell you that when it comes to harvesting does, you just take the first doe, the first mature doe, you shoot that deer, take it home, right? Fill those tags. I've now killed 2 deer in Maryland, 2 does, right? You're welcome. The deer, you're welcome. You, people who hunt, you're welcome. People who live around here, you're welcome. Bunjie and I did our job. It's one thing Bunjie and I know how to do. It's pile up deer, that's for sure. As ugly as it may be, but the important thing is that's now done. And we can focus on maybe doing a buck or whatever. I think we deserve a buck, but I'll shoot another doe tonight if I can. There she goes. We're just coming in. There were 4 or 5 deer at the feeder that were just coming in. And then he came to pick up my toe. But that feeder's going to go off in about 10 minutes. The last hour. Here it goes. Fingers crossed. Death by Bunjie.